Fearless investors, welcome back to another week. This week is, something special and honestly a huge asset for those of you, especially that are trying to get into the creative finance world. This is Rashell Jarvis with Constant Close. She is somebody I consider a friend, a mentor, and somebody that is one of the best at what she does. For those of you that are getting creative finance deals and you have the relationships in place, and like me, you were really good at talking with people and identifying deals, but then you were like, okay, now that I have this interested seller, what's the next step? This is where Rashell and her company come into play. They are one of the best, if not the best, at taking deals from verbal agreements to transacted documentation to an official close and a recorded contract. And so her asset in being able to help you in your business, especially on the creative acquisition side, is huge. She dives into what she does, the specifics of it, but more importantly, she also dives into the mental capacity side of it, the mental side of this game, which is huge. And so this was one of my favorite. Please make sure that you watch the whole thing through and through, and make sure you give her a follow. Let's dive into it. Fearless investors, welcome back to another week. Guys, this week is super special. It's special to me because I consider Rashell to be a mentor to me. She really was kind of the light to my fuse, which started my career when it comes to creative. She is a creative queen when it comes to all things in the creative space, especially the back end of it. And I'm just super excited to get to know her more and her story and give you guys a resource of somebody that's incredible in the space. So Rashell, thank you so much for being here.
See, I am so excited to be here and talk about all the things we've done, get to know your community a little bit more, and then share some things that I think will be valuable for everybody to resonate with and align with, hopefully, in this podcast. So I'm super stoked. Thanks for having me.
Love it. Yeah. So Rashell, I want to, before we dive into obviously what you do at scale, which is the creative side, you are literally a queen at that. I like to kind of dive into allowing our audience to get to know you a little bit more, where it started, what your passions are, what led you to kind of building your business of Constant Close today. And so let's start there.
Awesome. Okay, so I've been doing this for 17 years, but kind of where my journey started was kind of a pivotal moment in my life where I was working in the banking industry. So I started off in finance and mutual funds and, doing business banking. At that time, I was a single mom of 3 and primarily providing for my kids in a home that I couldn't afford and all of the different things. As life throws things at us, we have to adapt, right?
Yeah.
And I remember, and I tell this story all the time, of a lady coming in with her daughter, and she would just drop off these checks. And I was like, banking hours are horrible, right? So they were like, it opens at 8, you got to be there at 7. They close at 7, you got to be there till 8. And I had these 3 kids where I was like leaving my lunch break to feed them lunch and going to school and, all trying to juggle all of these different things. And I thought, what the heck does she do? What allows her that flexibility? And I really believe that it was a blessing in disguise. I never knew quite why I was in banking, but I did understand that I was really good at sales. I was really good with people. So as I was developing those skills, I happened to be in that environment where I saw people doing businesses, and I realized that she was a realtor. And so I started to look into that because there's no way that I could do everything that I needed to. And I hope people can resonate with that, whether you're a single mom or just the pivoting of life, of realizing that I need to change my life in order to, 1, get time freedom, in order to show up in a way and obviously give myself grace that I couldn't be everywhere at one time, and to be able to change my life. So what I did was I enrolled myself into being into the real estate school. So luckily I had the support of my parents, and I worked during the day, and then I would go to night school and get that done in like a 2-week, class, because I couldn't stay there for like months on end. So as I did that, I started to realize the avenue of real estate and how I could change my life and get that time freedom back while juggling everything. So my background is very finance, mutual funds, but as I got into the space, I realized the connection and the collaboration that I had with people of really wanting to serve people, which has really helped me provide a foundation of where I'm at today, and kind of intentfully working with people that I want to work with, and then being involved in businesses that I want to do. So as I did that, not knowing that God had a path for me, that being in mutual funds and being in finance, all of those skill sets that we're going to implement into real estate. And I did very, very well and achieved a lot in the first year. And then I had a boss where I was the listing agent, and we would do these calls on the Mojo dialer, and it would be cash calls. And the calls were like, hey, we'd like to offer you a cash price on your home. Call us if you're interested in that. It was that simple. No qualifying questions, nothing. And I thought, what is he doing? You know, why are we doing this? You know, as part of our 4 to 5 hour calls. And I realized he was buying these homes wholesale and being able to assign or take them down or whatever. And I thought, oh my gosh, this was so much easier because we didn't have all of the elements of, you know, traditional real estate. It was a cash price. It was super simple. So I thought, okay, so that was my first indication. And that was also a movement in my life again of pivoting, because I had a boss that I'm grateful for everyone that I collaborated with, but he didn't want me to move. He wanted me to stay his agent. And, you know, we all have those experiences, but I'm an entrepreneur, and I finally accepted the fact that you're going to have people that flow in and out of your business. And that is just how it is. They have the 100%. Same mindset. Yeah, that I do. Right. So I realized that, and I kept pushing and I kept pushing, kind of my personality. I want to know. And he didn't provide me that opportunity, even though he helped me learn so much. And I felt this thing within myself as I try to stay attuned to what I believe my intuition is. Some people will call it the creator, God, or whatever you want to call it. But I felt something inside of me to where I needed to make that jump. And as I made that jump, it was, I mean, I couldn't go a week without a paycheck. You know, I was providing for my kids. But as I was prayerful about it, and as I did things that really helped support me and my foundation of being raised and what I needed to do, I was blessed with an opportunity to meet Pace Morby. And it was so crazy because he had posted something on his Facebook, and I still have the text, I still have the Facebook messages. So when I share my story, and everybody was like, Rashell, you got to apply for this. And it was a transaction coordinating job. And I thought, well, I'm not a transaction coordinator. I'm at sales, but I know I could do that. Right. I knew all the sky slope, all of the documentation. And so I messaged him, and he messaged me back and said, give me a call. And then we had a conversation, and he hired me on the spot. And so that was during the time that Pace, which was so interesting. Obviously, he's such a visionary, to be involved in his world, in Cody's world, and everybody's world, to where he was building that sub-2 community, and to be able to sit back and watch him do what he does so well. And the checks that I was making was just kind of crazy with, you know, all the people in the office. And that's kind of where I've heard about sub-2. I didn't really know what was going on. And he had great connections to people that have been doing it for a very long time. So I sat there and I learned, and it kind of shot me off in a way of thinking like, hey, I could combine my sales skills, be able to do this. And this is how people do it, you guys. Like, there's so many other ways besides traditional real estate, right? And it doesn't blow your mind sometimes when we're working. Well, I mean, I'm a realtor, like, no shade. When you're working with realtors and you're like, there's so many other solutions. Like, you can serve so many different people. But it is something that's obviously becoming more popular these days. But being able to put yourself in those environments so you can just soak in all of that different stuff and then move on, you meet someone else, So that's kind of like my backstory of kind of how I got into real estate. You know, I have 5 kids. I'm a mom. We live in Southern California, which is another story of pivoting, and just, you want to be somewhere, you want to live somewhere for the quality of life, and just taking that leap and having the faith in yourself that I always say God has a plan, but always having faith in yourself and that confidence that you can make it happen. So everything just kind of fell into place. Once I did that, I kind of dived deep and just in the world of creative finance in so many different ways. So that's kind of like my backstory. I mean, there's a lot of nuances, but that's kind of how it got started. Yeah.
So you've dropped some bombs, like some nuggets. I love it, especially when it comes to mindset. So before we get to the tactical stuff, before we get to what you're doing today, I kind of want to live in this mindset kind of story that you mentioned. One of the big things that you mentioned that is huge, and I experienced this myself, is really putting yourself in a position where your back's against the wall and it's either sink or swim, right?
Mhm.
And that tends to be the hardest jump, I think, for everybody. And what I love about your story is you had mentioned that you couldn't have done it. Like when you did it, you couldn't go without a paycheck for a week. So
Right.
it really was like, hey, sink or swim. Like I either got to
Yes.
eat, I either got to go kill something or my family don't eat, you know?
Right. Right.
And so walk us through that
Mhm.
mindset. Like what got you? Because it's that obviously you saw this lady when you're working in bank, you wanted to make it jump into real estate. You did, you were doing well. How did you get yourself to that point where you were comfortable enough to make the jump and finally bet on yourself?
Right. Your biggest asset in your life and in your business is you. That's what's going to allow
Facts.
you to remove those glass
100%.
ceilings. And
Yep.
luckily, I've had great parents, but also understood with my visionary things as how are people doing this. With the boss that didn't want me to leave as a listing agent, I had some interactions with him where I thought, oh, he put a glass ceiling over himself. It's all self-development. When I say your biggest asset, it's emotional, spiritual, mental, physical. How are you treating yourself? How are you loving yourself? Really was what it comes down to in order to be able to go and scale and do the things that you want to do, because growth is uncomfortable. That's the thing, right? We get used to this certain paycheck. We get used to this certain thing. And you have to adopt the idea. If you have big dreams, whatever those dreams are, you are your biggest asset. So how you incorporate those things is always being a student of life, of always looking at things when you have pivotal moments, divorces, whether that be getting let go from your job, whether that be relationships, looking at those things as opportunities that come into your life to teach you something instead of being bitter and mad at the world. What is this teaching me so I can take it to the next level? It's always having that mindset so that you can look at these hurdles as opportunities. So I adopted that, and even though you adopt something, that doesn't mean the work stops. I'm doing something different now. So now I'm like, okay, I had to take a checkbook of all of my life, all of my friends, who am I interacting, what am I doing? And then be able to adopt that same thing, learn more, be a student of life, and continue on that journey. And it's never going to stop. It's never going to stop.
Absolutely. I love that. That is so gas. And it's one of those things that you're saying that is like the most, it's so funny. It's like I heard this quote the other day that I loved. It talked about how your financial problems in your business, the money you're not making, the money your business is making, those actually aren't financial problems. They're personal problems,
Yes.
right? Money follows the asset, right? Money follows the product of yourself. And so it's a byproduct of your personal development. So
Yeah.
100% agree. Spot on, spot on.
Yeah.
Love it. So let's start walking down the path of your career. So
Mhm.
I actually didn't know that. I didn't know that you worked with Pace. Like that's
Yeah. For
that
4 or 5 years. Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome, and that makes sense why you are the queen because you learned from the unicorn, right? And
Yes.
so,
Yes. Absolutely.
and I think you did an incredible job of finding a niche of like kind of this sales asset into transaction coordinator. So talk about what you do today. What exactly do you do today? What is the value that you bring to this space?
Right. So, in regards to the real estate field, I've been able to combine my different skills. And what we did is we started a transaction company. And as we're scaling, obviously, we're having different branches. But what we've done that I feel like kind of sets us apart is my sales skills. Obviously, with my employees,
100%.
I overflow into them. So what I know, they know. I have such a rock star employer. Her name's April. I would just love to she's so amazing. But it's being able, and how is that different? Okay, so for example, right, we know what transaction coordinators do. The traditional, they offload the paperwork and they're great at that. What we do a little bit differently is we make recommendations to handle the objections of creative finance, wholesale, or whatever it might be, based upon my experience, whether that be, okay, like, I'm totally cool with Lame buying my home. I get that. We have great rapport. But what happens if, and we've gotten these questions. What happens if he dies? What happens if he,
Yeah.
doesn't pay? And those are normal concerns. So because it's not because I've just learned creative finance, because I practice it, because it's a part of my life, because I invest, I'm able to, with my team, say, listen, these are the recommendations. And it brings credibility to somebody that is very an expert in the contract, because once you get those terms, and we could speak to this, Lami, once you get those terms and they're good with those terms, they're like, I'm good. Once they see the legal jargon of the contracts, it's not the nature of our sellers or even our JV partners, our signees, whatever that might be, to really understand the nuances of that.
100%.
And the deals, because we're in all 50 states, of we're going to do something completely different in New York, then we're going to do in Utah, then we're going to do in Arizona, then we're going to do in Florida. And so that's what kind of sets us apart, is being able to, all of my team can get on the phone, go over the contract, help kind of push your deal over in regards to getting it signed, just because we can add that credibility of understanding the contracts and the nuances of creative finance.
And I think it's such a, I'm going to speak now to my experience, right? Because we just closed the deal. We just closed the deal last week. And I think the competitive edge that you bring and the value proposition you bring, especially to sellers and informing them, is crucial. Because you and I both know that, the relationship only takes you so far, especially when you start to get to the paperwork. That's when emotions start to settle in.
100%.
And being able to have an asset like yourself and your company to be able to walk a seller through that and help them understand how they're protected, what these things mean, how they're going to be, how this is a legitimate deal, is honestly, it's a very specific value proposition that doesn't exist very much in this world of TC, right? And so I think what you've done is incredible, and I think it speaks volumes to what you've built in your career. And so congratulations on what you've done. So let's dive into, for the speakers, because the people listening to this, the people that are listening to this are operators in the short-term rental world. They're real estate investors. There's people that are, a lot of them are probably listening to this and wanting to get into creative. And so in your expertise and given your background, what is your piece of advice, especially to those people that have real estate backgrounds? But you and I both know this is a whole different game, right? You could be in real estate for decades, and I can tell you how many people have already still are, and they look at what I'm doing and it's like, wow, this is confusing. And so what is your advice to those people? What's your advice to people that are wanting to step into creative, that maybe have a real estate background, but this is new to them? Where do they start? What do they look for? What's your piece of advice given your background?
So I have to hone in back to kind of, and this is just kind of the way that I'm built, is, being able to create, if you're interested in the creative finance world, we can get into that, but it's also, I believe in intentfully living with whatever your skill set is. Now, I truly believe that knowing creative finance allows you to serve more people. And that, for me, I went into even a point in my career, probably like, I don't know, 8 years ago, I was like, I'm not really digging real estate. And it was because I wasn't intently aligned. And I feel like when you add skill set like creative finance, maybe you're a loan officer, Airbnb, whatever it is, that you can serve more people. And I think that just adds to the happiness of being able to use this strategy to serve people. Because we know once you get to your goals, once you make that money, that doesn't mean you're going to be happy. So I think it begins with intentfully, what are you using these strategies for? Now, where do you start? I get this question all the time. I think what Lame has done, and a lot of people that I know with very successful people, they've done the same thing. They know enough to be dangerous, but they collaborate with the right people. If you're interested in getting to creative finance, get people like Lame, get people like myself, get people like a mentorship or whatever it is that can help you be an asset to when you have those conversations, then you can lean on those people. You do not need to be an expert in everything. And this is what I see from the documentation side. I'm so scared, Rashell. I don't know how to do this. What's your superpower? Is it rapport? Is it sales? Is it documentation? Focus on that and collaborate with someone else that can give you that credibility to be able to do that. And the wheel's already been invented, you guys. There's YouTube University. Then you have these mentorships. Just have the right people in your sphere that you can be able to collaborate with, and understand that it is different. It is a different strategy. But if you're intentfully wanting to serve more people and close more deals, right? If you're offering just retail or offering just wholesale, close more deals. I mean, one thing that we can resonate as human beings, what are we all doing? Some type of time freedom is what we want. Some type of, we want to retire, whatever it is. It might look different. but the more that you know, the more you can do. So start off by collaborating with the right people. In addition to collaborating with that people, make sure you vibe with them. I think that's so important. Make
Very.
sure that, right, that the integrity matches, that I always say this, they're like, what mentor should I join? Well, do you want to be like her or him?
Yeah.
Like, do they model that? Because like we keep saying, learning these strategies, but you are your biggest asset. So just collaborate with people in your sphere, have the conversations, give yourself grace. You're going to make mistakes. Everybody does. And you'll be on your way, you know? So I think collaboration is just huge with being able to get into this realm of creative finance.
100%, 100%. And kind of coming and focusing back on you, we've talked a little bit about, you know, obviously your sales background combined with TCing. What are some of the more specific benefits of what you do, right? Somebody coming to you, and I could speak to those, and I will, but I'd love for you for a moment to kind of tell the people, like, what is somebody coming to Rashell Jarvis and her team, what are some of the benefits that they're getting with working and collaborating with your company?
You're going to learn more working with us because it's not just a transaction coordinated company. We do have products on our website. So it's structuring your deal, handling the objections, knowing the A to Z process, being able to close it effectively. The whole name of the game, in my opinion, with creative finance is documentation, because of the nuances of this strategy. You got to know how to protect yourself. So when you come and work with us, it is an A to Z process. It's, Rashell, I got this deal. This is my cash flow. I want to wrap it. You know, what does that look like? What are all the nuances? So it's really all of the nuances of creative finance, regardless of what transaction you're doing. We help you from the beginning, during the escrow, and to close it and to do it the right way. We are branching off into like transactional funding, which we do, we JV. So I could confidently say anything that you need from A to Z. Not only are you going to learn, but you're going to understand the process. So I think that's specifically what makes us a little bit different.
100%. And I'm just going to echo that with my testimony of that is 100% my experience with you, right? And working with you, we closed a few deals together. We had some conversations about these deals. It opened up some things in my mind. And that, like I said, I've told you this off camera, I owe you a lot, more than you know, because you were one of the first that again, kind of put me onto this trail, and it's been really good. So where can people find you? Where can people get a hold of you?
Yeah. So there's my website at constantclose.com, but I'm on Instagram probably the most at the Rashell Jarvis, just right here. And where you'll see our different things that we have, our different lives we have every Friday, but you can get a hold of me and DM me on there, or you can go to our website, check out our services. On our website, we do have like free calls where you can sign up saying, oh, okay, I'm kind of interested in this, but let me learn a little bit more, or I have a deal right now that I need to be structured, or I'm ready to move forward. So check out both of those places and you can get a hold of me there.
Awesome. Rashell, you are a wealth of knowledge as always. It's a pleasure always getting to talk with you. It's one of my favorite things. Before I let you go, the last thing I would ask is, what is just your general number one piece of advice you'd give the listeners?
I think we kind of went over that. I think in addition to that is really focusing on yourself and understanding what your goals are, because what I see recently is social media is a benefit. It can also be a con, to where we're trying to figure out what we want to do and compare and do things like this. Like me and Lame have both agreed on, you are your biggest asset, and realize that your time and the way that things go might look differently than other people. I thought about this before we started talking. I thought about my journey into the single parents out there, to the mothers out there that take time, that have to take breaks and get back into the industry, that have to do things and juggle these things. Understand that your journey is going to look different, and understand that the biggest asset in that journey is yourself. So pour into yourself so you have something to pour into other people. All of these other things, you guys are here. You got the strategies, you got Lame, you have all these different people. That's going to be fine. But always remember that you are your biggest asset in scaling, growing business, relationships, or whatever it is. And I think that's the key component of what has resonated in my life, and hopefully you guys resonate with.
Rashell, as always, it's a pleasure. You are a wealth of knowledge, as I said before. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom. We appreciate you. For those of you that are listening, again, click the subscribe button below. Make sure that you please give Rashell a follow. Her IG handle is in the banner below. Thank you again for being here. Appreciate you. Until next time, we'll see you guys next week. Hopefully you guys found that valuable. Rashell's one of the best at what she does. Like I said, she is the queen bee at this. So make sure that you give her a follow. Make sure you utilize her team in your deals. For those of you that are wanting to even know a little bit more about what is creative, and you're watching this and you're like, what is a creative deal? Well, guess what? I have a community and a course that we can teach you how to acquire properties with none of your own money and with no credit, no taxes, none of that fluff. As Rashell mentioned, there are other ways of transacting these deals, and I just so happen to have built a community around how you can learn. So if you want to learn more about the CASTR community, go ahead and click on the link below. Make sure you subscribe. Thank you guys for being here again. It means the world to me for your support. Until next time, we out, baby.